Good day. It's the 20th of May, according to my phone, 2025. Anyway, what's a day? A day between friends. Now, our community here in the northeast has got word of a young lad who drowned out in Spain. It's not officially announced, so we'll not say much, but it certainly put a damper on the humour of people around here. He was on holidays apparently. I knew his grandfather and I know his father, and there'll not be much fun out of me or fun out of the community if that's true. God help them all. If it's true, Lord have mercy on his soul. But anyway, we'll leave it like that for now. The other thing too is in America there have been terrible tornadoes. There's been what they call a swarm of tornadoes. Cold air from Canada came down, and if it hits right, warm air coming up from the Gulf of Mexico, it can cause a tornado. But in this case, it caused a swarm of tornadoes, the worst of which was at St. Louis, Missouri. And it's a twister. I saw them here in Ireland when they'd be making hay. You'd get a whirlwind and it'd lift the hay away up on a string and then it'd disappear. Now, our geographical location probably means that we are not too bad for that, but we had a bad storm last January. Done a lot of harm, including to my old houses. In any event, there's 27 people reported dead, and maybe that's not them all, and there are some people left without their homes. There'll be a huge insurance bill. It went up right to Illinois, whereas for the southern Illinois, and it hit bad in Kentucky. So it took a sort of an oval-shaped route, we'll say just at Chicago, right down to southern Missouri, down towards the Gulf. And anyway, you'll be hearing more about it, but I just want to mention it. I often thought in different circumstances I might have gone to America, and I probably wouldn't have stayed in the city areas that I've moved to a rural area, because I always liked hunting and shooting and fishing and all that, and I've moved to somewhere with those things. But could be there. If you're in America, there's a southern brawl, they call it. It's really the lazy mouth. They talk in a way that just takes the minimum energy, but it takes the maximum hearing. So you have to listen like this. Whereas in some parts of America you can hear them playing, but down the south it's you can understand them all right, but it takes a lot of brain power to decipher what they're saying. Anyway, that's their business and that's up to them. So that's bad news there. A lot of homes left without people and all of that. So anyway, that's the thing. Now, I have been hitting Sinn Féin hard, but I have been hitting them all hard, and the reason is the threat to this country, Ireland, from migration, and the threat to the UK, which is linked to Ireland in many ways. And Keir Starmer, the socialist, mad European man in England, has more or less undone Brexit. Well, he's undone the trading part of it, and he's given away the fish for years and years to come. So that's the way it is there. This is what happens. It's like the story of the boy from, I'm keeping my finger up here because I think the microphone's here. I don't want the breeze to hit it. It's like the boy in Amsterdam that put his finger in the dike to keep out the flood. You know, but it kept coming in bigger and bigger, and unless he got help, he wasn't going to hold it back. And so this woke thing is very, very powerful, but it is very, very destructive, and there's a war on between people who realise that the effects of it are destructive and those who seem to think it's great. Now, the thing is the irreversible effect on the demography, on the populations of the Western world. So when you see Joe Biden diagnosed with cancer, and this time last year he was the president, you can see that if the local people and the people on the ground don't resist, you can't expect the like of him. He's gone. So you have to stand up when it's happening, and that won't be easy. I made a video. Well, the thing about Sinn Féin is they have the likes of McKerney in Belfast, who's a rip-roaring socialist, but they don't want to lose him. They want to keep the mad socialists, the mad communists, globalists in the north, in Sinn Féin. Whereas down the south, they could possibly go away a bit from the madness and maybe it'd benefit them at the elections, but then they could lose the mad socialists in the north. And that's the problem they have. The other problem that we have is that Sinn Féin, being mad globalist and all of that, are beaten by Fine Gael and Fianna Fail. So in effect, this one of the features of the woke crowd is give everything away. If there's a pound at all, give it away. Give it to anyone except the people of the country, and that to me is madness. Now there's a man called Jeffrey Sachs, and he's a wise man. You can check him up there, and he makes the point that what's happening in Europe is utterly mad. It's utterly mad, and the way they're handling the Ukraine, it was nuts. You just can't bully away with the Russians like that, and it's nuts. It's madness. So this is all part of the madness. But Fine Gael have people in their ranks who are more woke than Declan Kearney is, or Matt Carthy is. And Fianna Fail have a few as well, not as many. So you see the problem for Sinn Féin. If they become conservative, you'd end up with a situation in Ireland where Sinn Féin is a sensible sort of party, you know, a bit left-wing, but doing sensible enough things and minding Irish fish and trying to win back our country. And Fine Gael and Fianna Fail are rip-roaring Castro. Rip-roaring Castro. In other words, the whole thing would be switched around. So in that situation, what do you expect Sinn Féin to do? Do you see the point I'm making? And then you have people before puberty with whom Sinn Féin would like to team up, and they all say there's a pool of starving people, that the Irish are starving. Starving. We can't get bread, we can't get eggs, we can't get milk, we can't get butter, and yet when you go into any of the supermarkets, it's loaded down with the best of good stuff. We have the best potatoes probably in the world. We have the most tasty, beautiful Golden Wonder and Kerprink and British Queen spuds you would get anywhere. And the Maris Piper, you have absolutely beautiful spuds, the roosters and all. So even if all went all, we could live on potatoes. Yet we're supposed to be starving, utterly impoverished. So it looks to me like that's a lie. They're telling a lie. But they do need starving people, and so they bring them in from abroad. The problem with bringing them in from abroad is the consequences for housing and all of that. But this is firmly the policy of Fine Gael, Fianna Fail, Sinn Féin. And how this came about is a bloody mystery, but all the likes of I can do is point it out in the hopes that people will see it. Now, I think there is a science about how people change their minds, and it can be done, and it's possible that I have good powers of explanation. Now, you see there the people who disagree with me, and disagree with me a lot, like Owen McDermott and these, when you're stop digging, in other words, you're in a hole, Val, will you stop? Well, the whole thing is, folks, no left-wing supporter isn't going to tell Val Martin to stop. You're my enemy. You're my enemy. That's like being at an auction where I want to buy a cow, and there's a lad over there, and he says, I'm a socialist, I want to buy this cow. That happens every day at the cattle marts. You don't bid. You don't bid. Let's see them with their fingers out. There's a big notice on the cattle mart. That's all that is. You please shut your mouth. Oh, why should I shut my mouth? Because if I win, I'll beat him. I'll beat him. So this idea when you're in a hole, stop digging. How did they say I'm in a hole? You look at the comments I'm getting. And don't forget, I meet people outside who say, keep on doing what you're doing. You're saying what everyone else thinks. So naturally enough, there's going to be a few people peeved about what I'm doing. Anyway, that's that. The other thing is, I made a video on the Pope, and people say, I should keep out of religion. Well, surely to goodness, the appointment of a Pope age 69 is news. And an assessment of that Pope, following having a sort of a communist Pope, Pope Francis, is news. And he could live for 30 years. And I certainly won't be making videos about him every week. But he's new. It's a new event. And so it's only proper that a channel like this, Real True Education, not fake news, should have a look. Does that not make sense to you? should have a look at them and see what we think. And I made my views, and it seems that I'm right in that. Now, if you look at the new Pope, it looks like he's rowing back a lot from Francis's left-wing thing. And I think he understands that a church like the Catholic Church cannot go with the flow. You cannot bend with the times. You can find a way of dealing with people who may be out of communion with the Pope, with Rome and all of that. But when you sell out its core principles, well, then you don't know where that'll end. And I think Pope Leo the 14th realizes that either the church sticks to its core principles or it will end up meaningless. That's what I think. Anyway. And if we're to believe what we're told, he's been guided along by God. I said before, he has a good appearance. He has a very good appearance, I have to say. It's very hard to see him being deceitful, but then we'll soon see. Give him time, you'll be eating your words. But that's no good. Anyone can predict what happened yesterday. Anyone can say who won the race yesterday. We want to know who won the race next week. Does that make sense? My channel is all about analysing and figuring out and assessing. Now, people do get me number various ways and they do ring me. I had a call from a lady on Sunday from the west of Ireland, and thank her very much for ringing, a good supporter. I think she's a retired teacher or something. She's an academic anyway. But she makes this point about thinking positive. You should think more positive and not be more negative. And I've had this debate for years and years about thinking positive and negative. And I remember one lady I knew, I met her through the course I was doing, and I was helping a bit with the tough stuff. She was doing one of them psychology things or whatever, but there was a wee bit of maths in her, some bit of history, and she got me to give her a hand, and I knew her people. Like everything else, when the parents know me, would you give Paddy a hand or give Johnny a hand? And I have issued a video there on how to pass exams. Very few seem to bother with it. That's their problem. They don't want to listen, that's all right. But I think it works quite well, and many people didn't give it great up. But anyway, that's I give that help, and that's it. But anyway, she was on, you don't understand the power of the mind, the human mind. It only uses 1/10 of its capacity. It doesn't matter to me what it uses. That's what we have, and that's what we have to work. And this idea that we could have 10 times more capacity in our brain is a load of horse you know what, horse manure to me. That old mental talk is nonsense. And then you must always think positive. If you don't think positive, I don't agree. I don't agree at all. And I do a lot of mechanical work. And when I'm fitting something to a tractor or fitting a tank, I always say, I'm forgetting something. And I had the tank in my tractor remedied, almost put back, but I didn't tighten the nut. And then I thought, the lever for the four-wheel drive, and I had to take out a few bolts to get it installed, which I wouldn't have to do if I had to think it out properly. So preparation and understanding what to do, and look at all the bits that's left lying around. There should be nothing left over. Shouldn't be like the clockmaker who found the wheel when he had it done. That's the one who was causing the trouble. You have to think it out. So preparation is better. And I also make the assumption that I'll make mistakes, that something will go wrong, as they say in Murphy's Law. And so I try to avoid the mistakes. And I've always said that success in life is a lot about not making mistakes. If we take Sean Quinn, he built up a great empire and he made an error, and now it's gone. And people got it very hard to accept that, but that's the situation. You're better off you only had half of that and never make a mistake and be able to assess. And I saw what happened to him because I did a course. I happened to be at the right place at the right time, and I was educated in how to avoid the very mistake he made. So this lady anyway had relations, and they were all think positive too, and they shout me down, you must think positive. But there was some of their aunts had a good lot of money, and it was expected to be distributed around because she was very great, and they were all very good to her. They're very good people. And it turned out when the aunt passed away, one of them, a man, had took all her money, got it all away, took it out, found a way, got her card or got something to take money out for her, and instead of just taking it out, he was told, he kept siphoning it off. and there was something like 400,000 euros gone. And I heard about it. I'll not say any more about it. Nothing I can do. Guards, everything else. Wouldn't you better off assume that if your aunt has a big lump of money in the bank that you need to talk to her and make sure there's nobody ripping it off and keep an eye on it? Wouldn't you better off assume that it's negative, not positive? I've made a video which I claim that mathematically there's no such thing as a minus number, but that's a different work. You can get that there if you want to see it. So I think the right way is think pragmatically. Think pragmatically. What is likely to happen? And err on the side of danger or negativity. If you have cattle out there, I let out cattle there now on a bit of land, and I haven't been up there for a while. There's almost certainly a hole in the ditch somewhere, or they'll find something. So I keep an eye on them the first few days. Once they settle in, they'll be all right, as long as the grass is there. So you have to keep an eye on that. You have to see if you have heifers coming in heat, are there neighbours' bulls there that if they got at the heifer, you'd never get the calf out of them. And that you have to watch that. So you have to think pragmatically, and that's the way I think. And it's worked very good for me. Being mechanically and doing that stuff I do on lathes and milling machines, that teaches you a lot. It teaches you about precision, and it also teaches you about if you overdo it. Supposing you're taking cuts of a bar and it has to be exactly 1 inch, where if you're putting a pulley up on it, you heat the pulley and then it'll slip up and then it seizes on it. You know what I mean? Now, supposing you get that slightly wrong, well then you'll have to throw the piece away and all your work is for nothing. So you have to be very careful to do that. And the way I do it is when I take it down to close to 1 inch, I take a little bit of the edge here and I keep fitting the pulley, heating the pulley, see will it go up and take it out. And when I get a piece here, this here, that's the right size, I then go on and I machine the whole way up on the grounds that if this bit's right, this is right. You know, that's a little trick of the trade. Now, they have modern equipment for doing that, of course. And if they hadn't, the whole thing would fall asunder because the young people don't seem to bother with that sort of things. I was buying bolts in a big bolt place yesterday, and I needed a couple of M8 metric 8 by Fine Thread. That's 1 mil, I think. The normal bolt you buy in the shop is 1.25 thread from pitch to pitch. And they tried to tell me there's no such thing as metric fine in an 8mm. And I said, no, alone is there metric fine, but you have them down there, you see. And so he went down again, and when we looked, they were there. So this is the kind of stuff you get. No education for shop staff. A lot of the big shops selling mechanical equipment are populated mostly by women now, young women. And if it's not on the computer, it's not there. Now, that's grand. I have no problem with women be there because I can tell you there's women in my family and that soon tell me where to get off. Very, very able people. But there's no training. And they have killed the desire to train. There's no training. I mean, if I got up in front of them in a class, in an in-service training, and went to talk about BSF and BSW, UNF and UFC, and Whitworth and metric and all that, they wouldn't listen. I don't believe they'd listen. They might if there was an exam in it. With the result that none of the staff, except a few older fellows in a lot of these engineering plants, don't know anything about screw threads, and they have millions of bolts, and in their lifetime they could sell 20 million bolts and nuts, and yet they don't even know the basics of the thread. I think that's very, very sad. And the worst of it is, if I made a video on it here, they wouldn't look at it. I think that's a terrible situation where they're ignorant of the world they live in. That's the story. Right, folks, that's 19 minutes. That'll finish off today, and we'll see you back soon. What did I get out here in this? Well, just a little update on things and on what's happening. People tell me when they meet me, they'll sit down with a cup of cocoa when they're to go to bed, and they'll watch Val. And I think too, I need not to have too many videos. One lad told me he watches every one, doesn't matter what it's about. I go back, I never miss one. But if I have too many videos, how are people going to watch them all? It takes me time to make them, and it takes them time to watch them, especially in this good weather. but the channel is a success. I'm pushing through to 10,000 subscribers. And I ask everyone to subscribe because it doesn't mean you're not signing up for anything. But you are showing YouTube that I have an audience, and that if they start banning me or anything like that, that they lose support. See, YouTube is on all the televisions now. So that's why it helps just to subscribe. It's not for any glory I'm doing it. And do you know something? I don't want any glory out of these YouTube videos. I've made a lot of enemies. A lot of people hate me over them. Made more enemies than friends, perhaps. So that's the best of it. But I just feel that I have something to contribute. All that's up here, it is passed on to some people, but it'd be nice to share a bit of it with people so they get the actual fact. There are certain truths. And so I have to deal with things like the Pope, and I have to deal with all them types of things, because otherwise I wouldn't be on the ball at all. You wouldn't be getting the real news. And the real news is fake. There is fake news out there. The way they do it is not too hard to understand. It's not rocket science the way it's done. So folks, I'll let you go at that. I don't think you'll be seeing any more of me today. Bye-bye, and we'll see you back soon, and comment underneath. I just given up on the comments that make no sense. I don't know, there's people write stuff there, and they don't know what I can't figure it out. You write it down in English, and sometimes if you write it down and see where the comma's meant to go, you'll then discover what they're actually saying. They make it very hard work by not writing it simple. Big, long scripts. Maybe somebody else will read them. I do not know. Plenty of big long scripts is all right if it contains useful information. You know what I mean? All right, we'll let you go, folks. Bye. Give a thumbs up. Good luck. Thank you.